We have about 45 families in our membership group. And membership is $25 a year, and that really kind of covers the cost of, if we have paper plates and napkins and things, and potlucks and, basic stuff. It also covers in case there's a speaker we need to reimburse for mileage or something like that. We usually have our speakers for free. We typically have a meeting a month that is a speaker or a potluck. We do potlucks or other, I was telling you, we wanted to do the ice cream social with the dance. That got canceled because of the weather. We have to have an ice cream social with the pool. You heard that, right? We do family potlucks. We do some camping. There's a group of us that go camping with a group that I also am part of in the north part of the county, which is our Treasured Parent Network, which is mostly kids still in school. So most of them are under 18 even. Most of them are even in the transition age. So there's a group of us, and this is our 8th year camping. So we've got 8 or 10 families typically. Sometimes we've had as many as 13 or 14 families. That gets a little difficult to coordinate. But so our process is, or I guess the word we want to get out there is we need places for our kids to live. And there's a housing crisis. Everybody knows there's a housing crisis. And it's a housing crisis of affordable housing, but it's also an extreme housing crisis for our kids. Steve has these great statistics, so I was really hoping he'd be here. He got statistics from the county, from the state actually, and then he pulled out the ones specific to the counties for Kent and Ottawa, because that's really where the bulk of our families are. Of how many thousands of people are receiving services. And remember, not everybody's receiving services. I'm sure you all know of families who are either too proud or just insistent that I can take care of my kid and I will, and and they never think about, okay, when I'm 70, what's going to happen? Because that kid's now 50 and never had any services. And now how do we get services? Because sometimes the paperwork doesn't go through, or, in our case, my husband passed away, and Hayden should qualify for SSDI, which he will qualify for. But there's a little glitch in the written word for Medicare and Medicaid that says if you didn't have SSI prior, then you're not eligible. Well, he'll never get SSI because he'll have SSDI. That missing D could cause me years of court case. Now, that kind of stuff is ridiculous. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things we're running across. The speakers we have, we bring in people from Social Security, from DHHS, from attorneys' offices. Dan Blau, I'm sure everybody knows Dan Blau and Sarah. They come in and talk to us about the ABLE Act and about special needs trusts. And they're not there necessarily selling their services. If you want to hire them, great. Most of us have already known about them and have hired them. There are others that are available that do the same kind of work. The goal is really just to get people to think about what happens when they hit an age that they can't take care of their child. Or in my case, my husband died suddenly of a massive heart attack at 45. We didn't see that coming. What happens if I get hit by a bus tomorrow? So I needed to prepare for him. So I was actually the youngest, the board member with the youngest child in the group, and I started when he was he'll be 18 this year. So he was just about 10, a little less 9. So everybody's like, and you're worried, why? Because years out, what are you worried about?
Comes fast.
Yeah, it comes fast, and when there's only one of me, I need to worry a little bit more than some of the other families. So over the beginning years, we kind of had this group that we were floundering, didn't know where we were going. It was more of a support group, and we realized that everybody's questions revolved around some very basic things. Housing is the biggest issue. Potentially jobs or some kind of volunteer work experience to keep people busy during the day and out of trouble. And then a friendship and community and friendship beyond the CLS worker who's being paid to be there. So, you know, they're wonderful, that's great. They're keeping an eye on your child, that's their job. Their job isn't to be their best friend. So, you know, that friendship, housing, and work of some sort, meaningful job work, I guess. And so we started narrowing our focus, and housing seems to be the first priority. We thought, okay, other things will come. We went down to, there's a group of us, there were 7 of us, went down to the community Center for Independent Futures in Evanston, Illinois. And they've been doing this for almost 20 years now. And it was started by a couple of moms, same kind of thing. Their kids were coming out of the transition program there. In Illinois, they come out 21, so much younger. And they didn't know what they were going to do with them. The moms were both working moms, and they're thinking, oh, Lord, now what do we do? We're going to take turns. You know, each of us take a week off or whatever. So they started this program, and working with some researchers at Northwestern University discovered that there were a lot of concepts for warehousing our children that were, you know, set up in the dark ages, really, and they've been there forever and nobody had changed them. So their basic question was, why aren't these kids being provided the same kind of housing opportunities that their siblings are provided? Why aren't they living in apartments or condos or in a house with some friends? You know, why don't they have the same opportunities? So they trained us to work in the same philosophical manner, to figure out how to develop a community. And this is not going to be, we're not building apartment complexes that are solely dedicated to people with adults with disabilities or families with children with disabilities. What we want to do is integrate them in the community. So integrate them within existing apartment complexes. If there's new apartment complexes, we want to see if we can snatch up 2 or 3 apartments, whatever it takes to have them nearby. The goal would be then to have kind of a cluster of special needs adults, potentially 6 or 8 people, no more than that, within a geographical area. They don't all have to be in the same building or the same apartment or the same house, just within the same geographical area. And then have these little mini clusters everywhere, wherever people need or want them. And to service those kids, they would all have their CLS workers, whoever the family wants to have, that's totally up to them. But we would like to have our community builders. The community builder is the person, they actually, we saw this at work in Illinois, in Evanston, and the house we went to visit was an older house similar to Heritage Hill. The same kind of historic neighborhood, beautiful old house. It had a couple of different apartments on different levels, and then it had a little apartment tucked up in the attic. The apartment in the attic was being used by their community builder. He worked as a teacher in the local transition program during the day. His job was just to be in his apartment so that if something happened, they could contact him at night, overnight, in case, you know, toilet overflow. He said in 2 years, he had one emergency. There was a tornado warning. He got there, put it in the basement, no big deal. That was it. Right. But his other job beyond that is to build community relations. So build a relationship between the guys living there, but also between the guys living there and the community. When this house was privately owned, and the guy that owned it had been renting out these apartments previously. He learned about Center for Independent Futures. Oh, there's Steve.
And we're being late, but I got here and saw the sign of 1020 outside, and I had the address. I didn't have the explanation.
Oh,
but I found my way.
I had the phone in my pocket and realized I didn't have your number, so I couldn't tell you.
I don't have yours either. We have to fix that.
Yeah. So I was kind of telling about Center for Independent Futures and where we were at with the house there. And the house had been rented out previously to other tenants. He was interested in Center for Independent Futures. He signed an agreement with them that he would provide housing for their people. And it was, like I said, 2 apartments. and then there's the apartment up top. Well, the neighborhood went a little berserk because, oh Lord, you know, who's moving in? And so the community builder, part of his job and part of Center for Independent Futures' job was to have an open house and invite the neighbors in to meet the guys who really live there. Find out they're just like us. There's nothing different. They may think a little different. They may talk a little different. They might even look a little different. But in the end, they're just like everybody else. And now they're great neighbors. Everybody loves them. They're good guys. They go out and work. I was absolutely amazed because some of these guys, their IQs were in the same range as my son Hayden's, so not at the highest functioning level, moderately or mildly impaired. And yet they're trained after months to take, they live in Evanston. So Evanston is a northern suburb of Chicago. One of the guys can walk to the train station. He has a form of autism. So he walks to the train station, he takes the train downtown, works in an architect's office delivering documents and collecting documents that need to be turned into drawings and shelving and filing and all that kind of stuff. And he works a full-time job there. The other one, his roommate, isn't as good with directions, so it took them a little longer to get him trained. It took 6 months to get him trained to take the bus that comes just outside his door to the train station, then take the train downtown. He works at Nordstrom's in their cafeteria bussing tables. So he goes all the way downtown on his own, and he's in the moderately impaired category. And he's the nicest kid you ever want to meet, works his tail off, loves his job, loves his life. His parents absolutely flabbergasted that this kid can do this on his own. They provide, their CLS staff provides training, of course. Keep an eye on them, make sure they're learning whatever they need to learn to be able to do some of these things. And sometimes it takes years. It's not, they didn't have them trained in a month and out the door they went. It took years to get them ready for this. And they were still being trained when they moved in. Everything wasn't perfect when they moved in. They still needed to learn the transportation. They still needed to learn, how are we taking care of dishes, coordinating with your roommate. They tried to make sure that these guys had a chance to get to know each other and then pick from their circle of friends who their roommates might be. With some guidance, of course, through parents. The families were involved, and families knew, temperaments and behavior issues and things like that. So that's what we're trying to do, is get families together, get to know each other, the families get to know each other, the kids get to know each other. Our groups of kids, when we first came, we'd do a potluck, and the kids would all sit with their parents, and, I want to associate. It didn't take more than 2 potlucks for them to kiss off the parents, and off they went to their own tables. And in some cases, a table only seats 8. They'd have like 15 people crammed into a table because they didn't even want to split up to the next table. So we'd have to say, okay, come on, you guys can't eat all crammed in this table. How about we have 2 tables of friends? Okay. So, they don't care what their parents are doing. If their parents go hungry, it doesn't matter to them. They're happy as they can be. So, I didn't go through your statistics yet. So, do you have those? I started, and then I thought, well, in case Steve comes, because I don't remember the exact numbers.
Well, part of the reason that we're doing this is because we don't like the options for housing. Virtually, there are none. or home, right? And so I don't have all of them with me, but I got some statistics from the Lakeshore Regional Entity, which is the umbrella organization of the community mental health organizations. We have roughly, and this is just, I can actually send this stuff to you if you want it emailed out, but there's about 15,000 individuals being served in Ottawa and Kent County, the majority, of course, in Kent County. And of those, we have like 16 are in behavioral institutions, 684 are homeless.
Right.
And it's probably more than that. Somebody tested us on that yesterday. That's 684 that are being served by the LRE. There might be 5 times as many as that, we don't know.
That aren't getting any service.
But one of the largest groups was about 3,500 people were living with basically family home. Didn't say they were living with family members or relatives. And of that 3,500, if you apply the percentage, which is a national average of how old the caregivers are, there's about 1,300 people living with a caregiver that's over the age of 65. My son's 29, I'm 66. I'm the target baby right now. So, and I become acutely aware every year that this can only go on so long because I won't be around. Okay. My son has cerebral palsy, autism, and epilepsy. He's in a wheelchair. He's got limited communication skills. But he does have skills. We always have to assume ability, right? Like Grace was saying, and I found this working with parents in my former life, working as a certified financial planner, and I work with attorneys and other folks to put together plans for our kids, what's going to happen in the future. Every one of them that had their son or daughter moved out said, I'm so surprised at what he could do. I never thought he could do that. She couldn't do that at home. I'll figure it out. She was at home. It's a different story. We have a codependent relationship built on love, but still it's a codependent relationship. So that's why we got into this sort of thing, because the numbers are just excruciating. And it's not a matter of, well, we find homes for these 1,300 people over the age of 65, that's the problem solved, because there's the next group coming along. My son went to Ottawa Area Center. I live in Ottawa County. And there's always 300 students enrolled there. You know, some move on, others move in. We have an ongoing problem. If we don't start solving it, next year there'll be 1,400 people living with somebody over 65. There'll be 1,500. The time is clicking. We have to do something. We don't like the options that are made out there. Most people come to us and they say, well, what do you have to show us? They're expecting, okay, we'll take you over to this building and show you the apartments, which is solving a housing problem. It doesn't solve the association problem, the society type thing, the community. We want to build those circles of support around our kids, giving them the optimum amount of choice within those circles that they get to direct their own lives. So instead of asking, you know, what's available, we ask people or reach out and say, why don't you ask what's possible? Right. And there's a lot of things that are possible. It doesn't have to be a licensed group home. In some cases, that's the best atmosphere, the best surrounding events, a high medical need or high behavioral need. But there's a lot of our kids, adult kids in the middle, at different levels of ability, that we still could give them the greatest amount of self-determination within that. That's our goal. But it's not just the housing. You know, as a parent, I know we focus on programs through school. We focus on, you know, getting them this or that kind of a program, whatever. But it's not just the housing. It's learning all those skills so that they can have a home.
And a meaningful life.
Right. And
I feel like they're giving back and being part of the community, not somebody taking care of them forever.
But I love that example too.
Feel like they're being babies.
With the ICT, the CIF example, and Emerson, where the neighbors were thinking, oh, who moved next door? There goes the property value, all stupidity. But you know what happened there? The neighbors learned something.
Right.
Okay, so within their own community, they were able to spread this great message out to other people that, you know what, Billy and Jane and Sue, they're people. They have the same emotional, social needs as anybody else. And you know, we're gifted because we understand values better than those other people out there that don't have kids. We have a whole different view of that. And I think it's wonderful. Not that it's our kids' responsibility to go out and teach the world. I get real exception of that. But if that happens in the process of them becoming part of society, all the better. Now they got somebody else who can have them too. Somebody else has their back.
So part of the community involvement is, you know, we have these regular meetings, the kids come, there's usually some kind of speaker for us, although if it's pop-up or something, it's a little different than that, but there's usually a speaker for the parents, and then there's also a group of the kids that go off and they might be covering the same topic, but at a level that's more easy for them to understand. So we might be talking about transportation issues, and they're talking about transportation. And there's a few of the kids that have apartments of their own or condos of their own. And some take public transportation, some know the rules, and some take the go bus. And so they'll talk about their experiences and they'll share with the other kids. Because you know those other kids are listening to them way more than they're ever going to listen to us. So, you know, the kids will share amongst themselves. And there's a young man that we've met a few times through the Grand Rapids transition program. I just keep coming across Dominic, and he is just the nicest kid. He now has an apartment on his own, he has a job, he does speaking engagements, he's getting his GED. This kid's in a wheelchair, and people just look at him and think, oh, that poor child. Well, that poor child's going to rule the world one of these days. This is a bright kid who's been pigeonholed. And he is incredible. He gets out there on his own. So we're going to have him come and talk to some of our kids too, and to our parents. Because as we discovered, we're all guilty of this. Me just as much as Steve and everybody out there, sure. We cater to their whims and we spoil them and we do things for them because it's quicker if I just do it myself. All those things you think, should be a teaching opportunity, but it's just quicker if I do it myself. So we have to pull back and let them do things themselves. We have a quick story, both Down syndrome girls, so you can all relate to this one. They're in the CBI program that Hayden goes to at his high school. They're both working in the same hair salon on different days. They take turns. One of them comes in, she knows what her jobs are, she starts right to it, she collects all the towels, she gets them in the washing machine, she puts in the soap, she runs them, she takes them out and moves them to the dryer, she gets them out of the dryer, she folds them with such precision that the hairdresser is absolutely amazed. She said, if I took a ruler, every one of those towels would be exactly the same size. She puts them all away, she sweeps the floor, she greets people coming in, she gets them water, she gets them coffee, she works her tail off from the minute she gets there until the minute she leaves. And she knows what to do and she needs no direction. And the hairdresser says, her parents must be pretty strict. And I said, she's one of three, she's in the middle, her parents expect her to pull her weight. The other one, her mom does everything for her. And she just comes in and she wants to just sit and chat to the other people who are there. She doesn't really want to do anything. And when she has to do something, she complains that the hairdresser is mean because she makes her sweep. I'm thinking, which one has a better chance of survival on her own? You know, the one with that's in between two siblings that have had to learn to take care of themselves. Mom travels a lot for work, dad travels a lot for work. They rely on those kids to be fairly independent. These girls are both the same age within a couple of months of each other. They're both 16 years old, almost 17. I think one just turned 17 in February, the other one turned 17 in June. So, you know, it's night and day. And not that the other one can't be trained, it's just that she hasn't. She can easily be trained to do the same job.
And it's the same with any neurotypical.
Oh yeah, exactly. We spoil them just as we spoil our special needs children. You know, how many times have you heard from a teacher, your child just needs to fail once in a while?
To decide, my middle daughter is a teacher, and I can't believe how grassy she can be, but she has parents coming in all the time saying, well, I think my son has ADD. She says, no, your son has LAZY. And this is what he has to do. He's not turning in his homework, he's not doing his work, blah, blah, blah. So just a matter of, you don't nourish that thought by, you say, no, this is a responsibility. And you can, I'm sure that both of them could be very responsible in the future through just setting some examples, setting some expectations.
And sometimes just we as parents need to talk to other parents to say, back off.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we've done some, as part of Oasis, we're trying to do a little training above and beyond what they get in the schools, and sometimes they're already out, you know, they're 26 or older, so they're already out of the programs. And we did a cooking class with the YMCA out at Mary Free Bed, and it was just for our kids. We had 10 kids in a class, and it was 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. These kids were making stir fries and pizzas. They were chopping vegetables with real knives. You know, they were doing what they needed to do, and the instructor was fantastic. I went to kind of supervise. My son was not there because he wasn't old enough to be in the class yet. But I went to make sure. We didn't know the instructor, and she doesn't typically work with special ed kids, so we weren't sure, you know, if she'd be overwhelmed. And she said, I'd feel better if a parent could be there. And I wanted to make sure it was a parent who didn't have a kid in the class. So I said, well, I'll do it. We'll see how it goes. And I kind of just stood back, and sometimes I'd encourage somebody to participate, or if somebody was like, ooh, I don't eat vegetables, you know. Well, your friends are tasting it, maybe you should try. And I knew in advance if there were allergies or anything like that. So, you know, they all ended up eating everything they cooked. They loved it. They took all the recipes home. The last day we were there, they each got a little $10 gift card from Myers. And the Myers at Kraft is right in front of the Mary Free Y. So we could walk to the Myers. They were responsible. They also had nutrition as part of, there was a nutritional discussion at every session. So they had to get a lean meat, a fruit, a vegetable, and a whole grain, and a dairy, a low-fat dairy. So they had to have all those things, and then they had to prepare something at home. And they had their book of recipes. Not all of them could read. Parents could read for them. They could use a PDF reader, whatever they needed. So they had to prepare something. So, and I had been sending updates to the parents every week. This is what the kids did today, and some pictures. And, you know, the parents were like just shocked when they hear their kids were using sharp knives, you know. Oh, kids, some of these are 45-year-old women, you know, they're using sharp knives. Well, it's about time. They need to know how to do this without hurting themselves. So the parents were thrilled when the kids made meals for them. And then we had a potluck within like a week or two after that. And I told the kids, your job is going to be you're making the dish for your family. Don't let your mom and dad do it. You can ask for their help if you need it, but it's your responsibility. And they came, they were so proud of their dishes, you know. Sometimes they didn't look great, but they tasted great.
It wasn't just hot dog and beans. They were making some stuff you would get like all recipes in the Food Network. It was really good looking stuff. So.
Yeah. So it wasn't just here's how to use the microwave and warm up your burrito from the freezer. So it was some real cooking skills. Did you talk
about her MOUs?
Not yet. Not yet.
And so we're trying to get them to just good questions because it's
we're trying to get them to learn some skills so that they get a little more time to prepare to move on their own. Some of these skills are going to be interdependent. You know, roommates who live together. These guys in Chicago, you know, they found that it worked really well to have in this house. They had 2 different apartments. Each of them had a guy with ASD, and each of them had a guy that was moderately cognitively impaired. They worked really well together. The guy with ASD could read and write and could do some of the more academic things. The other ones had all the social skills. So they could make up for the social skills, and they could teach their friend how to do what they needed to do. So they worked together really well, and they had become friends.
Which brings up one of the words we have in our mission statement where you're talking about
interdependence.
Vision statement. Oasis community members live interdependently. Let's face it, we all have some skills and we all lack in other skills, and we depend upon other people to help us live. Nobody's dependent unless you live out on a mountaintop someplace, or your own food, etc. A good example is Hayden here. Hayden is a social animal. But he loves to push Liam's wheelchair, and Liam loves to get pushed in his wheelchair. They got very different challenges, but that's really a good fit, you know? So I think sometimes in the past we have thought to think in silos. You know, we got the autistic people with autism here, et cetera, all the way down the line, Down syndrome, and we have cerebral palsy, you know. We're all facing the same challenges. We really are. I mean, there's certain things that are diagnostic specific we have to drill down and learn more about. When it comes to living and social skills and everything else, we're facing the same thing.
And creating friendships, you know, that shouldn't hold you back. Whether somebody has Down syndrome versus Williams syndrome, does that mean you can't be friends?
And this is why this is good because the two groups are coming together and I think that friendship piece is critical just because after they're 30, Eric's 32, but all his friends from the inclusion program and all, they're getting married, they're having kids, and we're finding at this age now that he is gravitating with the kids with special needs because I mean, we went to Arizona and came back and he saw his friends from Arizona, which had all special needs because they didn't do the inclusion.
Yeah.
And then coming back now, I'm finding that, his friends are all married, and so it's that piece that as they get older too, and I think kids or adults that have been in group homes, a lot of them are older, and they haven't had that inclusion piece.
Right. It wasn't part of
right now. I mean, I'd say 30s on down, 32 on down. Our kids are used to it being part of them.
Right. And the ADA laws that required buildings to be more accessible, that brought a lot of families out of the woodwork that were kind of, couldn't take their child out or were afraid to, and now I think people are getting more bold because their kid is in the public school and they're seen, and we're not embarrassed to go to the grocery store, we're not embarrassed to go. There still are families who are. They shouldn't be, but they are, and with time, I think they will all come out of the closet as well. But you're right, there's a huge difference between that slightly older group
and they're,
that really have been isolated down to these kids who, Hayden takes a cooking class, the Gen Ed cooking class in high school. So two of the two girls that both work in at the salon also take the same cooking class. Only because we fought for it. The district didn't want us to have that.
We all know that.
They didn't want our kids in that cooking class. I don't care. You know what? Free and public education. I'm paying for that school. I'm paying for that equipment in the cooking class. My kid's taking it.
Right.
End of discussion. The same thing. He took cooking class in middle school. And he was, after I fought for it, it had already been a week into the class, or maybe even two. The only class they could fit him in was an 8th grade cooking class, and he was in 6th grade, so you're not allowed to mix 6th graders with 8th graders. And after they were done discussing it with my attorney, then they changed their mind. So Hayden went into the class, and the teacher was giving them a test on utensils. How to use all these different utensils in the classroom. And everybody else had pen and paper. She laid out the utensils with him and just asked, what is this? How's it used? What is this? He got the highest score in the class against 8th graders, all Gen Ed. It's not that he can't learn. They don't want to give him a chance. So in this case, the teacher was thrilled then. And all the cooking teachers have been thrilled for him to be in classes because he loves to clean. So he'll do the cleanup when the other kids in the group that he's with are going, oh, we have to wash the dishes. He's like, I have to wash the dishes too. He's got bubbles up to here and he's happy as a clam. So
again, I think, they can do it. They just have to be trained. They have to be given the opportunities, and they're just, so that's.
Some of the other training we're looking into, ICCF, Inner City Christian Federation, has a program where people buy houses through them. Low-income families qualify and buy houses. As part of the process, they have a training where you, as a potential new homeowner, somebody who's never owned a home, probably grew up in an apartment or grew up in a rental house or really just doesn't know how to take care of a house, learns all these maintenance issues. Not that our kids are going to necessarily buy houses. Some families may, but we want them to be able to learn how to safely change a light bulb, how to turn off the water if the toilet's overflowing, how to unclog a toilet, how to maybe even paint a wall, you know, simple things. Some may need to learn how to clean because nobody's ever showed them that. So we're hoping through ICCF that they can kind of scale that program down, because that's like a 2-year program. So it's a much more intense than what we're looking at, but scale that down. They're working on something with us to maybe present it to a few classes for any of our kids who might be moving out in a position where they're moving into a rental house, that they need to do some basic stuff like change a light bulb. They're not gonna wait and call the landlord to change the light bulb, you know? Or if they have the emergency of the toilet overflowing, they're gonna have to.
What is ICCF?
Inner City Christian Federation.
Aren't they the largest creator of low-cost housing?
I don't know if they are the largest or not. Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. They certainly are in West Michigan. I don't know if they're in the state.
You may have caught this in the news a while back. I think it was around the time of the real estate market too. Some Chicago investor bought like 170 homes in the Grand Rapids area, and they recently sold to ICCF, and they're using them to maintain it as low-cost housing. The idea was to flip and jack the price up, so we have people dedicated long-term to affordable housing. We have a relationship with ICCF. Grace has done work with them, so is Lynn, our secretary, who's an electrical engineer. They like what we're doing, and they've even toyed with the idea of giving us some master leases to some houses that are strategically located to be able to offer services homes.
And we do have our foot in the door with a number of developers, because Lynn and I both have done a lot of nonprofit housing in our professional lives. We keep this completely separate, but we've discovered a lot of the providers of low-income housing really understand, because they are always getting phone calls from families with special needs adults saying, how do we get our kids in there? And they, you know, some have 10-year waiting lists. Or they don't take that kind of low-income voucher, or they don't, you know, your kid makes too much to qualify for this program, or so they feel helpless. So we're working with them to try and get our foot in the door, and potentially get 2 or 3 apartments in different buildings that they're working on. So we're working with ICCF, Genesis Nonprofit, Dwelling Place, Jacobson's, Dabrowski. I think that's.
Anybody
else will listen. Yeah. And we find that, you know, when you start talking to people, everybody knows somebody who has a special needs child or adult child. So it doesn't take long to get the word out there. And they all understand that we can't all afford to take care of our child forever. Some of us will be gone. They may not have siblings. And honestly, is that what we want for our child? Do we want them to have to live with family and have to live with a sibling, or have to go in a group home? Is that really? And the group homes are extremely limited. So, you know, is that what you want? We want our children to have more choice.
You mentioned
more
group homes.
options.
One of the numbers that I don't have with me, there's like 290 people in the 2 counties that are living in group homes.
Out of the 15,000.
Right. So when people say, well, find a group home, it's, well, you know, by the time your child has an opportunity, it could be 5, 10 years, it could be less. That being said, there's some group homes that are basically functioning, their basic mission is high medical necessity or high behavioral necessity, and we're not trying to diss them. They do a great job in the areas where it's most needed. But for the majority of us that have family members who are able, with some assistance, to live more independently, why would we do that?
And our goal is for them to live as independently as they can, based on what they can do, not what we think they can do, or what other people limit what they can do.
Okay, questions?
You mentioned MOU, but then you didn't say what that was.
Oh,
Memorandums of understanding.
Understanding. Those are agreements that we have. We have one in the works with ICCF specifically for a housing relationship of some sort.
We have one with Samaritans.
Yes.
They,
And I did mention Samaritas to them
okay,
and how we landed on them.
yeah, because they do a great job of providing care in the home, and, my story was I know about them because I'm a Lutheran, so I met some individuals at, one of our synod conventions, and, was invited to one of the, dinners they had recognizing people for years of service. Now, we all have CLS people, right? Okay. They're recognizing people for 10, 15, 20 years of service as a CLS provider. Usually it's like 6 months or maybe a year or whatever. They pay them more, okay? They give them benefits, health care, the whole bit. They treat them well. And these people were just, they got emotional about beginning to work because they love working with the people they work with. They got a long-term relationship. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's what we need for our kids is long-term relationship. You know, stability. They know how to do this. They know how to deliver services in a kind and loving way. And they're not being preachy about it. They're not proselytizing, but they're doing what they believe that Christ would have them do. Okay? Regardless of the person's affiliation. So we thought, I can't think of a better partner than that. Then we're going to have we're already working with their understanding, having memorandums of understanding with ICCF and Genesis and maybe Beyond 26 for John.
And yeah, John, we haven't even talked about Beyond 26 yet. Beyond 26 is another parent group. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. They're in the process of getting all their paperwork in, but I think he's got most of that done. I think it's already in, he's just waiting to hear back. They're doing jobs and job training for kids beyond 26. So once they're out of transition programs, if they don't qualify for services from MRS, Michigan Rehab Services, there's nothing else out there. So Dirk's got a son who's 20, 21, and he's saying he's had businesses for years, and he's been a businessman. He's run very successful businesses, and he's small businesses, and he said, some of my best employees are people with special needs. Why aren't more people hiring people with special needs? So he wants to have this group similar to ours where we're getting families together to do housing. He wants to work with us, with the same families, to provide job training, jobs, volunteer opportunities. So it's not just paid employment. Some of it could be according to what their abilities are. Could be 40-hour-a-week paid employment, could be part-time paid employment, could be part-time volunteer work, could be numerous volunteer jobs, so it ends up being almost a full-time job. And they would have people training these adults to do the work, as well as on-the-job kind of training and making sure that they're doing what they need, and training from everything from how to physically do whatever they need to do, to social skills, getting an application ready, how to dress appropriately, how to dress and shave and whatever you need to do to look right on your job too, and to continue to participate. Who to trust, who not to trust, you know, how to behave, and what's an appropriate topic of conversation, what isn't. All the things they've learned from the time they're little, reinforced as adults. So somebody isn't just washing their hands and saying, okay, you're 26, you're done now, you know?
Was that the same program that his restaurant up in Cadillac?
No, that's after 26. That was part of a school program up there, right. This is a parent group down here who's, they're mostly in the Byron Center, Jenison area at this point. Granville, I guess, not Jenison. Byron Center, Jenison, or Granville, and then they're hoping to take all of Kent County and Ottawa County by storm.
I think we find that there's pockets of the same thing, and it's like if it would just
well, that's what we're trying to do.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So with Beyond 26 as a kind of a partner, then we're hoping more people hear of all of us. And then we've been working together with Down Syndrome Association because we discovered a couple of years back that everybody was providing the same lectures. And we were, sometimes it'd be the same speakers 2 days apart, or they're giving the same lecture on Thursday afternoon here and Thursday evening here. And we're competing for the same bunch of families, which is ridiculous. So now we meet every 6 weeks to 2 months, according to when I need here and schedule another meeting. But we meet Down Syndrome Association, Beyond 26, Oasis, the ARC, Autism Society, Children's Special Health Care Services, Puzzle Partners, YMCA's Family Hope, Disability Advocates. I'm like, there's at least one more. So we all are getting together to talk about what we're doing, who's doing what, who's got some major speaker coming. And then either we join together to support a speaker, and a lot of times the speakers are free. So it just means some free advertising on the poster. But if there's 4 of us on the poster, families are going to be more interested than if you're doing it, you're doing it all on different days, but it's the same.
I mean, the possibility here, not to get political, because I know it's kind of a dangerous territory, but when you're advocating, if you have like 16 other groups that have your back.
And we're all pushing for the same supports.
About 7 or 8 years ago, before the insurance in Michigan was covering autism, I was talking with a friend of mine whose daughter has Down syndrome. And I said, are you aware of the fact that autism wasn't covered? She said, no. I said, well, we're having, some kind of a rally in Lansing. Would you go to support that? Yeah. Didn't know. Well, why don't we, when it's necessary to push the needle on something, if a whole bunch of people show up, guess what? You get noticed. And it's all advocating for the rights that we have.
And we've been infiltrating boards, too, of various groups. So, it helps to have families with special needs kids on every imaginable board there is. Housing board for the county, housing boards for the city, housing commissions, whatever healthcare groups, whatever we can get our hands into, because then we have somebody who knows what's going on there and can sit and talk like an equal and say, you know me, you know my kid, this is what we're talking about.
And I know 32 years ago, Eric has autism, but back then I was like, no, he's too verbal. I mean, just think, in those years, what has changed?
And they would also pigeonhole, I know other kids with Down syndrome have autism, but they said, they just have Down syndrome.
And it's not like we want
they can't have both.
one of the services, and that's...
We don't need another label, we just want the services.
Right. We don't care what label. Yeah, but it was like you only get one label. I'm sorry, you can't have 2. Doesn't matter if you deserve it or not.
And parents, we do know what's best, but then you get,
yeah.
How many of the typical kids that come to your meetings?
Well, we have, he had been the youngest, but lately we've been getting more 14, 15, 16-year-olds up to, we've got some that are in their 40s. And once in a while, we'll have a parent drop in who's 70-ish, 70 plus. We'll have a 50-plus-year-old child. But they're kind of in we just want a place to put our kid. They're not, because again, they're not part of that inclusion age group.
Right.
They really don't understand what we're trying to do.
It's a mindset.
It is, and they don't want that. They want the safety and security of a lockdown house where their kid's going to be locked down and protected. And at 50 years old, and if that's all they've ever known, sadly, that may be all they'll ever know. Right. Where our kids, we've fought to include them.
I mean, it really is thinking outside the box and just what we know as parents, what these kids are, capable of doing, and it's us taking an active, being an advocate, and it's just.
Well, and technology has helped. I mean, my son doesn't read and write. He's dyslexic, one of those great labels that you get little or no recognition for. The school does not consider that a medical issue. They don't consider it anything they need to treat. It's not an academic issue, they just ignore it completely. So he gets no special help in reading, even though our district has a program in the resource room that helps dyslexic children. He doesn't qualify because he's not in the resource room. So it's very frustrating, but that technology out there, he can now send emails verbally. He can read with a PDF reader, and his computer just can read it to him. He can set it up that everything comes in and it reads it to him. And he can respond orally, which it records, and then emails to somebody else. So there's a lot of things that are changed that make life more accessible for our kids than it ever was for some of these other kids.
That's just changed.
Right, and even things like speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, look how far that's come in 20, 30 years. It's huge, absolutely huge. So, any questions? Our meetings are open to the public. You don't have to be a member to attend. I meant to bring some flyers on our potluck that's coming up. It's not
at Trinity.
Not right now, because it's under renovation. Right. So we've been using Trinity Lutheran Church. We're not associated or affiliated with any church or any denomination. We have members who are atheists. We have members who are Jewish. We have members who are Lutheran. You know, we don't care. That's your business. That's your opinion. Whatever you want to do. We're not, nobody's forcing anything in one way or another. The church is just kind enough to let us use their space for free. And they've been very, very kind about that. So, it's at Christ Lutheran. We've been meeting at Christ Lutheran. They were kind enough to let us come over there while Trinity's being renovated. They're over on 44th Street. St. Ivan Rest. It's not quite that far now. I don't remember what the.
You can send me the flyer and I can pass it out.
I will do that. Remind me to send the flyer.
And since we're talking about churches and that piece of it, with the City Fest coming up, I don't know if we were at the Resurrection Life, and thousands of people were there. And they're working with all the churches in the community, trying to how we can better the community. And I told them that this piece is huge. And I mean, churches are, no abortional, but they need to step up to the plate too and help.
It really just because sometimes they talk about. When we moved to the area, we lived in the Holland area for maybe 12 years now. I moved here from Arizona. But you're right about the programs. Either they're really, really great or they really stink in Arizona. But we're looking for a church that would have a special needs ministry, whatever that's supposed to be.
Right.
We found out several of them. The special needs ministry was a room upstairs with a bunch of toys and games.
Babysitting room.
We ended up in a very small church because the whole church is very welcoming. And we were there, and Liam was having a meltdown, and we were just totally flustered. And people came up to us afterwards and says, "Don't worry about that. We understand. We're glad you're here." I said, "Well, fine. We found them in the street. It's the whole church."
Right.
But yeah, many of them they have thousands of members, but they're totally like. What?
This is a part of
If you have that many people, you probably have 200 families.
Right.
Okay? And you're not even aware of it. That's the problem,
We also have some churches do their own thing,
Right.
but they only take people of that denomination.
Yeah.
Or if you're not of that denomination, your child is expected to attend their services and participate in their Bible study. We don't want that. We want freedom.
Again,
If you're all living in a house together and some of you want to worship in your way, do it.
Right.
As long as it's not infringing on what they want to do or don't want to do.
Right.
I don't, it's complete freedom as far as I'm concerned. So I'd love to have the church's help, and we get that with free space from the Lutheran Church. And they ask, can some of our people attend if they want? Absolutely.
If you're building, yes.
They want to do things things to help. And
Right.
Yeah.
They have to understand that there's that need out there for all of us, the transportation.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many needs.
And
So-
sometimes, I hate to say this out loud because it's probably gonna come out wrong, but sometimes with church groups, you have to be very careful because they wanna do the right thing, what their heart leads them to do, and sometimes that is to take care of our child,
Right.
not to let them flourish on their own.
That's true.
And I know their heart's in the right place, but he had a principal that used to tell me every time he'd get in trouble, and I'd be in the principal's face because it was typically would lead back to you were infringing on his right to do something, and that's why he got into trouble, because he wants to do this like the other kids, and you don't want him to. So it came down to, you just don't know how much I love your son. And I said, I don't need you to love my son, I need you to educate my son. That's your job as his principal.
Right. And
that's the
and
same-
again,
My
that's-
concern is I don't want people to love him to death. I want them to let him flourish and spread his wings a little bit.
We had, when Eric was in kindergarten, I got a thing in the bus and he threw some of these classes, and I said, what's the person? I went right and took Eric with me and went up to the door and she said, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know you had special needs. I said, I don't care what you got. He doesn't throw some of these classes.
Yeah.
So it's educating them and, you know, along the journey of life that, you know, some of these parents that are just starting out, oh man, we did, I mean, you know, wow. We can all help each other.
And I think that's, you know, the interdependence also is families relying on each other, because we're not always gonna be here forever, but we're gonna feel a lot better if we know some of the other families who maybe are younger, or, you know, if something happened to us suddenly, they're still there, and our child knows that family, knows their kids. We do that with just our extended family anyway, so why not our family of special needs friends, so.
Can you imagine talking to a neurotypical person and saying, I don't like my kid? They'd say, they think you're a monster, but we understand there's days in which I don't like him very much.
And there are days he doesn't like us either.
There are days that I want to put him on a bus trip, one-way ticket to Cleveland, that's it, you know? But that, you still love him, but people don't understand that because they don't know.
How frustrating you're.
Well, that's
Child
just,
can be.
we live in a.
It's like all children. All children can be frustrated. It doesn't matter what their needs are. I'm sure we were frustrated at our parents as well.
Like I've had more than one occasion, someone asked me, well, how do you talk to someone in a wheelchair? And it's try English, they probably understand English.
Well, thanks so much for coming, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. Any questions?